In Mrs. Dalloway, Virginia Woolf accomplishes what the European novel had been preparing since the death of the epic. She internalizes the carnival. She translates the heteroglossia of crowds into the simultaneity of mind, transforming the public marketplace of voices into the rhythm of thought beneath London's ordered surface. The book is one day in June 1923, yet within that temporal point unfolds the whole dialogic universe of modern consciousness. The bells of Big Ben strike the hours, each chime reverberates differently in every mind it touches. Thus time itself becomes polyphonic, a concert of subjective tempos. Woolf's art resembles a vast choral fugue where Clarissa Dalloway, Septimus Warren Smith, Peter Walsh, and the anonymous Londoners carry interweaving melodic lines, each autonomous, each penetrated by the others, none reducible to a single theme. The external plot, Clarissa's preparation for her evening party, is the thinnest of narrative threads, binding 100 interior oratorios, showing how every social gesture conceals an entire cosmology of thought. To approach this work through Bakhtin's lens is to see that Woolf, like Dostoevsky, destroys the monologic authority of a narrating voice. Her narrator dissolves into consciousnesses, speaking through them rather than over them. The omniscient viewpoint becomes dialogized, a mobile relay of perspectives. One moment the sentence articulates Clarissa's perception of the flower shop, then by imperceptible modulation it becomes the vantage of the passing motorist, the old lady at the window, or Septimus hallucinating the same sound as revelation. No voice is excluded, every consciousness participates in London's polyphony. The city is the true protagonist, a heteroglot organism whose speech is endlessly self-answering. London's traffic, advertisements, bells, trees, skies, newsboys, these compose the living background of social language, the speech of the everyday, which Woolf conducts as symphony. The narrative is not simply interior monologue but collective dialogue, the modern metropolis thinking itself. Woolf's chronotope of the single day creates unity through which multiplicity can resonate. The temporal frame, sunrise to night, recalls the cyclical pattern of medieval feasts or Homeric episodes, here transposed into psychological microcosm. Boundaries between past and present, life and death, are membranes of memory, porous, reversible, constantly traversed. Clarissa recalls Borton, Peter's proposal, Sally Seaton's kiss, Septimus relives the trenches and Evans's death. These recollections do not interrupt the narrative, they are the narrative. Woolf's time is dialogic, each present moment contains answer and counter-answer from the past. Memory, that inner interlocutor, turns consciousness into an exchange between what has been and what might have been. The bells that measure external time contrast with the fugitive rhythm of inner duration, Bergsonian yet profoundly Bakhtinian, time as conversation, not as line. In Mrs. Dalloway the carnivalesque has migrated from fairground to drawing room, from bodily inversion to psychological simultaneity. The day of Clarissa's party is a secular feast where the city celebrates itself, hierarchies dissolve as princes and clerks, ladies and dressmakers, share the streets and the June air. Yet Woolf's carnival is muted, elegiac, laughter of an exhausted civilization. Its energy springs not from grotesque physicality but from the liberation of consciousness, thoughts mingling across class barriers, each unaware yet resonant with the others. At the novel's height, the party scene, the collective murmur of voices, gossip, piano music, and trivial remarks becomes a sacred chorus, echo of ancient festivals where life and death meet. There Clarissa, hearing of Septimus's suicide, understands the death of a stranger as part of the same rhythm as her feast. The inward solitude of all beings constitutes their communion. In that instant she enters the highest form of dialogic consciousness, not communication by speech, but by shared finitude. The very language of the novel enacts its dialogism. Woolf composes not with sentences but with waves, phrases breaking, withdrawing, overlapping. Grammar itself becomes polyphonic. Parentheses, dashes, and semicolons function as typographical signs of co-presence, multiple consciousnesses speaking simultaneously. Such syntax refuses hierarchy, no clause subordinates another, each clause listens. The result is prose that breathes, each rhythm an individual pulse, all pulses merging in the collective heartbeat of London. Here language ceases to be instrument and becomes organism. The narrator's voice no longer describes, it answers, Clarissa's thought by rhythm, Septimus's delirium by cadence. Stream of consciousness, that modernist innovation, is in truth a dialogic stream, a river of interaction between inner and outer voices. To read Clarissa within this polyphonic sea is to see her as Carnival's queen transfigured into hostess. Her party, an act of social performance, conceals a metaphysical yearning for contact, the desire to weave temporary harmony from life's discord. Everything about her gesture has ritual tone, buying flowers, arranging rooms, greeting guests. But the ritual's drama is dialogic, she celebrates because she cannot speak. Her whispered question, was it all worthwhile, after all? Is no soliloquy but invocation, a summons to the invisible others around her. Her identity exists only through reflection in others' minds, mask and participant at once. Clarissa is a polyphonic heroine, her I never finalizes itself, always heard amid the overtones of others' judgments, Hugh Whitbread's condescension, Peter Walsh's nostalgia, Sally Seton's affection. Multiplicity of social evaluation is the texture of her being. Opposite Clarissa stands Septimus Smith, the war-shattered clerk whose madness mirrors her social grace. They never meet, yet their consciousnesses echo across the city like distorted intervals of one chord. Septimus is the prophet of answerability, he hears voices demanding response from a world grown deaf. His hallucinations, trees speaking, birds chanting in Greek, are grotesque inversions of true dialogism. The world refuses to answer, society medicalizes what is, in metaphysical sense, a cry for contact. In the doctor's office, language is stripped of reciprocity. Sir William Bradshaw and Dr. Holmes speak with monologic authority, diagnosing without listening. Woolf here exposes the tyranny of knowledge divorced from understanding, the same crisis Shelley dramatized in Victor Frankenstein. Septimus's suicide is not defeat but utterance, a final speech into the void. His leap from the window shatters the sentence of the city, letting resonance reach Clarissa at her party. Their dialogue is transspatial, pure resonance, a conversation of deaths that sanctifies the living. The novel's heteroglossia operates not only among characters but within London's own speech. Public discourse, news, politics, advertisements, bells, penetrates all consciousness, turning private thought into collage of social languages. Clarissa's reflections on Lady Bruton's luncheon or the Prime Minister's visit are saturated with impersonal idioms. Beneath these runs another layer, the language of body, of silence, of sea. Woolf juxtaposes these strata, bureaucratic, lyrical, colloquial, so each reveals the other's falsity. The high diction of empire, the war, the dead, intersects with the whispering of waves, forming a double speech both majestic and hollow. Through layering she achieves what realism could not, exposing ideology by simultaneous presence, not by argument. Each phrase contains its own parody. This is heteroglossia in its purest form, word against word, within the same breath. Equally dialogic is Woolf's treatment of subject and community. The novel reveals that consciousness itself is collective, every thought presupposes another's presence. Mrs. Dalloway said she would buy the flowers herself already implies conversation, the unspoken reply of household and tradition that gives meaning to her gesture. Woolf's genius is to transform interior monologue into social relation. Even alone, Clarissa feels the other's gaze, the world becomes her mirror. This principle deepens metaphysically when she hears of Septimus's death and senses she must go on. The ethics of dialogism, life as answerability, appears not as lesson but emotion, survival as response, courage as listening. If Woolf's structure is dialogue between souls, its medium is rhythm. The tolling clocks, the alternating fates of Clarissa and Septimus, form refrain and counter-refrain. Time itself connects minds that never meet. In classical terms the novel plays two movements, morning expansion and evening convergence. Morning scatters voices across London, evening gathers them to the party, the communal scene. This rhythm recreates carnival from dawn to midnight yet empties it of raucous laughter, keeping its spiritual core, mortality within festivity. Clarissa's withdrawal to the small room mirrors the medieval pause when revelers face the skull beneath the mask. Through that gesture Woolf unites ecstasy and mourning, laughter and silence, in one temporal breath. Woolf's handling of point of view perfects narrative dialogism. The free indirect style lets author and character merge without fusion, partners in shared speech. She felt somehow very like him, the young man who had killed himself. The utterance belongs to neither Clarissa nor Woolf alone, a hybrid voice, embodying dialogic unity. When Reziah binds the hat or Miss Kilman broods over her soul, the tone oscillates between empathy and irony, never closing. Each consciousness is both subject and object, speaker and listener. The reader becomes third participant in this exchange. Here artistic truth emerges not as monologic statement but as event of mutual understanding. Socially, Mrs. Dalloway transforms Victorian hierarchy into subtle stratification of modernity. Servants still open doors, the Prime Minister still commands awe, yet language begins to erode boundaries. Working-class speech seeps into elite syntax, Clarissa's thoughts borrow idioms of reports and journals. Her greetings, "How delightful to see you," function as both sincerity and quotation. Duplicity is not deceit but the condition of social language, it lives through echo. The novel reveals identity as archive of borrowed words. London thus becomes the grand theatre of heteroglossia, every utterance haunted by déjà vu resonance. Yet dialogism for Woolf is existential as well as linguistic. Clarissa's movement through the city, her glances at strangers, stage humanity's search for communion in anonymity. The crowd replaces congregation, the street becomes ethical space. Each passerby is potential interlocutor, every meeting of eyes a minute dialogue. Even the aeroplane tracing letters in the sky turns spectators into collective readers, thousands answering silently. This impulse to relate balances Septimus's isolation. Where he sinks under unheard voices, she floats on unspoken sympathy. Their fates show two limits of dialogic being, madness's dissolution and society's petrification. Between them lies relation itself, the ethical middle path Woolf discovers. The historical importance of her art lies in this interiorization of dialogic space. Dostoevsky externalized voices in drama, Woolf lets them coexist within consciousness. The self becomes parliament of feelings, thought becomes discourse among selves. Clarissa arguing with Clarissa, Septimus listening to Evans, Reziah translating madness into tenderness, each is inner dialogue. Woolf carries Bakhtin into psychology, showing the soul as polyphonic organism. The I is no unit but conversation among memory, desire, and social echo. Hence Mrs. Dalloway culminates the tradition of polyphonic art at intimate scale, the very neuron as site of carnival. Even the texture of death obeys the law of dialogue. Septimus dies, Clarissa lives, yet death speaks through life, and life articulates death. Clarissa's reflection, her sense that he made her feel the beauty, that was enough, is a reply to silence. Her gratitude answers his fall. Death becomes not closure but continuation, voice changed into echo. Woolf, herself haunted by that border between sanity and breakdown, turns private pain to chorus. Between Clarissa and Septimus tragedy is recast as communion through distance. The city hums, absorbing their merged voices into its nocturnal score. The final scene, the party's climax, is resolution and question at once. Guests speak, laughter fills air, the Prime Minister appears like symbolic sun. For a moment, unity. Yet beneath the music hovers uncertainty, each joy casts its shadow. Clarissa's withdrawal to the small room distills the novel's essence, revelation through retreat. She looks across the street, the old lady extinguishes the lamp, and mutual recognition occurs in silence. Two separate lives, one rhythmic exchange of light and dark. The party continues beyond her hearing, mechanical polyphony surrounding a single introspective note. This quiet dialogue completes the day. Woolf ends not with moral but with cadence, Clarissa returning, re-entering life. The rhythm remains suspended, granting the reader final answerability. In the great time of culture, Mrs. Dalloway marks the turn where polyphony turns inward. The marketplace of speech migrates to the mind. If Frankenstein unveiled the danger of monologic creation and Ulysses the carnival of verbal abundance, Woolf finds the balance of listening selfhood. Her revolution is attunement, not rebellion. She replaces the discourse of power with discourse of sympathy. Reality appears only through acts of recognition, even the smallest understanding rescues being from nihilism. This ethics of attention, phrased in musical syntax, answers the mechanized speech of her age. Against headline and decree she sets the murmur of perception, the infinite meaning of a glance. Here polyphony achieves transparency. Separateness no longer means discord but light through glass. The dialogues of rich and poor, sane and insane, man and woman, body and soul compose texture, not chaos. Modernity's tissue is woven of voice. The carnival survives as vibration within every mind capable of listening. Thus Mrs. Dalloway ends where dialogism itself must end, not in synthesis but in openness. Night extends beyond the window. London breathes under stars. Countless minds drift yet remain intertwined in unspoken fellowship. The reader, closing the book, bears this polyphony inward, hearing still the chime of Big Ben that meant everything and nothing, a question released to the world, awaiting eternal reply.